will as well. It seems that Oklahoma's content with their linebacker class in the 26th cycle. Bo Jandro and Ja'Cory Smith. Jandro from Hamilton, Arizona. Smith, of course, from Bryant, Arkansas. This felt like a class, still feels to me like a class where Oklahoma needs to load up at linebacker, i.e. get more than 2. But evidently they are content with 2. And it appears that Braxton Lindsey is going to commit to BYU later today. That is where the buzz is and has been now for several days. So there was a ton of steam and a lot of momentum for Oklahoma coming out of the official visit weekend. And one of the things I've picked up and been told is that if Braxton Lindsey had jumped on board with Oklahoma immediately following his OV, they would gladly have welcomed him to the class. But after Bo Jandro's commitment, a third linebacker was perceived by those in the building as less of a necessity.
This is one where you see some of the people on the text line that have said, hey, I got to trust Jim Nagy. We got to trust Jim Nagy. Well, this is one we're going to have to trust Jim Nagy on.
Pretty much.
Because the math is not adding up to me with this one. This seemed like a necessity, an absolute necessity, that you take at minimum 3 linebackers. And you were in a situation where all 3 of those linebackers that you were poised to take are going to be pretty good. Ja'Cory Smith, pretty good prospect. Bo Jandro, we've talked about ad nauseum. Braxton Lindsey, you and I both like better than the other 2. So this is going to be one of those things where you have to hit. It puts more pressure on Bo Jandro's development, on Ja'Cory Smith's development, to actually turn into capable SEC players, because you're already lean at that position and you're going to bring in an even leaner class so as not to refuel like you should have. So, no, this is an interesting development. The math isn't mathing here for me, but if it works out, good for everybody involved. If it doesn't, we'll probably have July 7th to refer back to when we talk about what's going on at linebacker if stuff doesn't go the way it should a couple of years down the line.
Let's see what the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line thinks. The Waffler says, wow, that is a huge loss in the recruiting. Terrible decision to let Lindsey go. Stupid. I'm pissed.
Wow.
Glenn from Nashville says, quick, somebody please tell Jim Nagy that unlike the 48-man roster limits in the NFL, it's actually 53, colleges can have upwards of 85 players. Please recruit more linebackers.
You know what makes matters worse on this?
The text line is coming after you for...
Yeah, we'll read some of those in a second. You know, what makes matters worse with this is what we talked about last week, Parker, and that you still have 7 scholarship tight ends on the roster. Well, six. Yeah. 6 plus John Locke, the walk-on. These are the kinds of things with the roster construction right now that makes people and gives them valid reason to do so look kind of sideways at what's going on now.
And honestly, the distinction between walk-on and if you're on the roster, look, you're getting paid, right? So whether it's 85 or 105 or whatever the scholarship limit winds up being, it's all semantics as to whether a guy is a scholarship dude or a walk-on at a certain point. Cool Moj says, Grayson Singleton auctioning himself off to the big spenders. Say it ain't so. What's next, Grayson? Sandaggy podcasts? For shame.
Believe it, there was not an auction here. And I love how you cleaned that up, too, because Cool Moj definitely did not say I'm auctioning myself off.
Yes, no, he did not.
He said something a little bit more egregious.
In my years of dealing with the text line, I have learned to sanitize texts on the fly. It is a well-developed skill of mine. Mongo says, Nagy's thinking on not taking a third linebacker in the classes, that he can probably find a more sure thing in the portal for around the same price. And, yeah, there's probably some truth to that.
Maybe.
I think linebacker was always a position where Oklahoma was going to have to go to the portal at the end of the 2025 season for at least a guy or two for the sake of experience. Right? Like, you have to have guys, especially in Brent Venable's scheme, which is notoriously very cognitively demanding of the linebackers. You have to have guys that aren't going to be mentally overwhelmed by the task at hand.
Which does that lend to this? Is that a system where getting 18 and 19-year-olds into it just may not be the most feasible idea? Is that something where you're going to consistently be reloading via the portal because you've got more grown people out of the portal so they can maybe, hopefully, grasp the system a lot easier and smoother?
Yeah, look, at the outset, when Brent Venables took the job at Oklahoma, I know the plan long-term was to move away from using the transfer portal at all. Oklahoma, in the long term, did not want to have to use the transfer portal, period.
It was supposed to be the Dabo Swinney formula.
But what have you seen over the last few months, this offseason in particular? Even Dabo Swinney has begun to use the transfer portal. So it is a necessary evil, if an evil is what you regard it to be, in the current climate of college football. Doug and Norman did say, Grayson, since you mentioned that I gave you a 2024 Phil Steele mag, I will be delivering a 2025 copy of Phil Steele to the station tonight when I have access to a car. Enjoy. Look at that.
Appreciate you, homie.
Doug hooking you up.
I totally
Doug
forgot we'd even talked about that.
Doug is genuinely a great dude. Michael in Marlow says, I ain't mad at you, Pickle Boy. Get your bag. Gator says, ponies, pokes, and pickles. It's all finally coming together. Hashtag Spike was safe.
One star Joe Bob from Louisiana says, Grayson a hoe. And completely spelled that wrong.
Grayson a how. It's probably autocorrect.
Probably.
I'll tell you, I forget, I lost the text now, probably because this text is so large on the screen in front of me, I can barely process it. I lost the message from whoever asked, is there good news coming in Norman, Oklahoma anytime soon? Well, we addressed Braxton Lindsey. The other guy that we have yet to address is the number one prospect in the state of Indiana, Tyler Ruxer. I expect that he will commit to Oklahoma today. And provided that does happen, Grayson, as we touched on last week a little bit, you know which OU assistant suddenly has a really freaking impressive class in the 2026 cycle? John Finley.
The one that everybody wishes they could send to Alcatraz.
Ryder Mix and Tyler Ruxer, that's a whale of a class for old Joe John. Come on now.
Look, I said it last week. There was a chance that by the time we came back on here today, and I know Tyler Ruxer is going to announce once we get off air, but there was a chance that the dude who would have potentially the most impressive haul in the 2026 class at this particular moment in time is the dude that everybody cannot stand. And so far, that has looked like it's come to fruition because with the developments with Braxton Lindsey, it sure as hell isn't going to be the linebacker position.
And John and Blanchard said, Parker, BYU people are saying Lindsey is going to them and the other OU site is as well. Yes, John, that's what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes is the reality that Braxton Lindsey is likely committing to BYU later today. So that is the expectation. That's been the expectation for a few days. I believe it was Wednesday afternoon, just after we got off air. For the long weekend that I reported on OUinsider.com, hey, this thing is actually swinging in BYU's favor. So, that's the expectation is that Lindsey is going to be a Cougar when he commits later today. But Tyler Ruxer, man, how many Indiana Sooners have there been? This is a very interesting question because you don't really think about Indiana as being a school that, is geographically so far away from Norman, Oklahoma that you never have guys from that region of the country. But offhand, I can't think of the last Indiana Sooner. Can any of you on the text line?
I can't think of one.
Who was the last player that Oklahoma signed out of high school from the state of Indiana? If you can come up with the answer, please. I'm genuinely asking. I myself do not know the correct answer offhand. I would love to know if anybody with a sharper memory than I can recall when was the last time Oklahoma signed a scholarship football player out of high school from the state of Indiana. That drought, however long it may be, could end with Tyler Ruxer. I expect it to. I think he commits to Oklahoma today.
Ultimate Web Hunter says, is Muleshoe going to get Peyton Houston? Now,
I want to save that for next segment.
Okay. Oh, this should be cool. Because you texted me about that, and I was like, I'm not going to ask him for any details.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose because I want to see what you know the same time everybody else does.
Mm-hmm. Mike S. says, feels like OU recruiting is also in a weird place because of staff uncertainty going forward. And this right here.
I'm so glad we're getting to this.
This right here matters, especially in the after today's revelation that Joe Castiglione is going to be retiring as Oklahoma's athletic director, which is surprising but not. I don't think we had any forewarning that this was going to be coming today, but I think most everyone understood the clock is ticking on Joe C's tenure as AD. He's not getting any younger. He's no spring chicken, and he's been here for 28 years. Brent Venables was hired by Joe Castiglione. Steely and I discussed this last hour with Jesse Crittenden on the Riverwind Casino Jackpot line. If you are Brent Venables and you are no longer answering to the athletic director that hired you, just call it like it is, Grayson. You're not going to be getting buddy treatment, if you will. Not to insinuate that that was happening or is happening or would happen with Brent Venables and Joe Castiglione, but your boss, your next boss, whoever he may be, he's not going to extend you the same grace in all likelihood as Joe Castiglione would because he didn't hire you. He has no emotional ties to your acquisition as head football coach. I mean, unless it's Zach Selman, in which case Selman was still on staff as deputy AD. I forget what his exact title was, but he was still there prominently in the athletic department when Brent Venables was hired. But you come in as a new athletic director at the University of Oklahoma, you're going to have a vision, you're going to have a plan. That plan may or may not involve Brent Venables, and that's why it becomes so paramount, Grayson. It feels like we've said this 1,000 different times, 1,000 different ways, but it is absolutely pivotal that Oklahoma wins football games in 2025.
Well, if it wasn't pivotal before today, it sure as hell is now. Because Brent Venables, that clock just accelerated with the Joe Castiglione announcement. It is not going backwards, I will tell you that. Because unless you hire as the next AD somebody like a Zach Selman, you're talking about an outside guy, pretty much, who's going to have a totally different vision that, by the way, could run counter to not just Brent Venables and his staff and their vision for the team, but also their foundation of the program as well. That could be something that could be somewhat uprooted to the point where some of these recruits start to think twice, because AD matters. AD really does matter, and there are few instances in college football right now where you can say the AD has mattered than Joe Castiglione. Look at how fast they pivoted off of Lincoln Riley to Brent Venables in the middle of the night. They rectified that situation fast. Joe C. got them to the SEC. You got to give him credit for that. And if you and I can see what sort of changes could happen depending on who the next AD is, you know for sure that the kids who are thinking about coming here also have that in the back of their mind. So it is imperative that Brent Venables win games because you want to keep as much stability with this program as possible. New AD, maybe a new head coach, that could be problematic in terms of recruiting.
By the way, I completely looked past the very obvious answer. I should have recalled this. It is admittedly a bit of a forgettable answer because the player in question had a pretty forgettable career at OU that only lasted one season. But it's only been 3 cycles since Oklahoma signed a prospect out of the state of Indiana. I don't know how long it was before that, but Day McCullough, 4-star safety from South Bend, Indiana, signed with Oklahoma in the 2023 cycle.
Some people are saying Deshaun McCullough, too.
Deshaun McCullough, yeah, but he was a transfer.
He's a transfer, and he's from Overland Park, Kansas.
Originally, yes. But Day McCullough did graduate high school in South Bend, Indiana, and committed to Oklahoma, signed with Oklahoma in the 2023 cycle. So the answer was right in front of me, and I looked right past it. Tragic. Be kicking myself for that one. Into the break, certainly. On the other side, a lot more to discuss. Obviously, the whole situation with Peyton Houston, Cooper Hackett, and all of the Sand Aggie smoke that's been building.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we got a lot to dig into over the course of the hour here on Locked In. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Keep it here for more OU recruiting talk.
Coach Stoops here for Van Hoos Fence. If you want to work with the best local fence company and get championship service, contact my friend Mark and the Van Hoos Fence team. Van Hoos Fence gives each customer the most professional craftsmanship and competitive pricing in Oklahoma. From wood to chain link to vinyl to metal fences, the Van Hoos Fence team does it all. Contact the Fencing All-Americans at Van Hoos Fence, 405-735-1167 or vhfence.com.
Considering refinancing your mortgage? Now might be the perfect time to start planning. With rates on the move, Stride Bank can help you determine if you may be able to lower your monthly payments, shorten your loan term, or tap into your home's equity. Stride's expert mortgage advisors will work with you to tailor a solution that fits your needs. With local roots and national reach, Stride Bank is your go-to partner for all your banking needs. Stride Bank, your trusted financial partner since 1913. Find out more at stridebank.com. Stride Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Don't miss out on OKC's hottest entertainment at the Showplace Theater with acts like
Air Supply, July 25th. Tracy Lawrence, August 1st.
Time marches on.
Sammy Kershaw, August 15th.
No angel.
And Brett Michaels, September 27th.
Every rose has its
Riverwind is OKC's favorite casino experience.
I'm Gina Mitchell of Mitchell's Jewelry. We take our tagline, "Where Oklahoma gets engaged," to heart. Engagement rings, so many different styles and price ranges. We even have rings that are ready for a proposal this weekend. However, if a custom, one-of-a-kind design is your style, that's our specialty. Natural diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, or colored gems. Let us create her dream ring. Stay in the loop with us on our socials or at mitchells-jewelry.com or come see us at 2201 West Main in Norman.
Hey Sooner fans, this is Dory Noka, lead anchor of the SEC Network and host of the Dory Noka Show here on the Ref. SEC Media Days are just around the corner. No one will have you covered quite like the home of Sooner fans. Tune into the Ref July 14th through the 17th as we go live to cover it in Atlanta. That's SEC Media Days, July 14th through the 17th, and no one covers it like we do, right here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
The Ref's SEC Media Days are brought to you by Bob Hurley RV, the Oklahoma football tailgate headquarters.
No matter where you live, you care about one thing during bad weather: keeping your family and property safe. Scissortail Roofing and Construction is here to ensure just that. Whether it's damage from strong winds or a hailstorm, we will manage your residential or commercial project from start to finish. Call us today, 405-928-8089, or visit us online at scissortailroofing.com for a free estimate. Call Scissortail today, your trusted local roofing and construction company.
My mom is a veteran and she was injured in the line of duty.
I hurt my leg in a training accident when she was only 2 years old.
She had 7 different surgeries over the span of 9 years, and there were tons of complications.
I'm doing much better now. I may have lost my leg, but I've gained so much. I got my joy back.
We got our mom back, thanks to DAV.
Every year, DAV helps more than 1 million veterans like Sandy get the health and disability benefits they've earned.
My victory is getting my life back.
Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Hi, I'm Ashton and I'm with the nonprofit Fostering Futures. Every day, children are removed from their homes due to abuse and neglect. In these critical moments, we step in to support these vulnerable kids. We work alongside child welfare workers to meet the essential needs of safety, stability, and healthy connections, as well as providing enrichment opportunities. But we can't do this important work without your support. Consider donating at fosteringfuturesok.org. Together, we can offer children a brighter future.
I genuinely think today has already been a top 5 text line day over the course of my entire career at the Ref. Not necessarily for quantity of texts, but quality of texts. The text line as a collective has been on one today. A 918 listener says, Grayson constantly sounds like he's speaking with an exclamation point. I think that's a compliment. I'm interpreting it as a compliment on your behalf.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not. It could
means you're speaking decisively.
Yes.
With flair, with power.
If that is the thought behind it, then yes, that is a compliment, and then thank you.
Brian in Jacksonville says, imagine Wurzy being vindicated and Bob being hired as the AD. Elon would have to pull a Thanos and nuke Twitter. Fortunately, the Ayatollah of Iran has more desire for the AD position than Bob Stoops. Hashtag block Wurzy. Get that campaign trending. Guy's the worst.
You really hate OU Wurzy, don't you?
Oh, my goodness. He's so annoying. So annoying. There are very few people in the OU community that I have blocked Grayson, but he is one of them. Got a lot of Missouri fans blocked.
Yeah, I know that one.
Got a lot of Texas people blocked, I believe. Very few OU people. Very, very few. Where was I going next?
Peyton Houston.
Peyton Houston. There we go. Pivot. Back to subject matter. By the way, 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line if you want to add to what has been a fantastic litany of texts over the course of the last few hours. But, right about when we were going on air, right around noon, I opened my phone to the news that my colleagues at Rivals, Sam Spiegelman and Steve Wiltfong, two of the more reputable national experts on the recruiting scene, had entered predictions in favor of USC for Peyton Houston. You're looking very surprised. You have a very surprised look on your face. Did you not realize this?
Of all the recruiting stuff and all the other things on Twitter that I scroll through, this was one that did not come across my feed. What has happened?
And look, okay, let's dive into this. First off, if you've been following our coverage at OUinsider.com of Peyton Houston's recruitment, if you've heard me talk about Peyton Houston here on this show over the last few months, what you know is that Oklahoma has remained a top contender for his services, but that Texas and Texas A&M have been trending down, and USC and Clemson have been trending up. Now, there is a similarity between Oklahoma and USC as far as their approach with Peyton Houston. Peyton Houston is the only 2027 quarterback that Oklahoma has offered and pursued. Peyton Houston is also the only quarterback in the 2027 class that USC has offered and pursued. So Lincoln Riley and Ben Arbuckle are locked in a heads-up battle for Peyton Houston, and that's pretty much what it's going to be the rest of the way. Again, I don't want to dismiss Clemson. I don't want to completely dismiss Texas or Texas A&M because anybody that's followed recruiting for any amount of time, especially these days, knows that recruiting can be an absolutely psychotic world full of twists and turns and shifts. And I also don't want to dismiss LSU, especially after they just missed out on Bo Bentley, because Peyton Houston is in their own state, and they may be inclined at some point to come back to the table with a Godfather offer to a kid like that. But the two schools that are likely to have staying power until decision day for Peyton Houston are OU and USC. So I think this is where we find out what Ben Arbuckle's made of. He's built a really good relationship with Houston and his family, a really strong relationship. Him and his family love the University of Oklahoma. They have been up here on a myriad of occasions, most recently last month to camp in front of Arbuckle. They love Arbuckle, they love Oklahoma, but USC has given Peyton a lot to think about. USC, as far as the financial aspect of things, I think it's pretty well understood when you look at their 2026 class that regardless of whether or not the money is actually there, like that's an entirely different conversation, but they've made some very hefty promises to members of their 2027 class, or 26 class, excuse me. And Houston is the guy on whom they have a red eye as the centerpiece of their 27 class. What else happened over the weekend? They got a commitment from a childhood buddy of his that hails from Cotton Valley, Louisiana, just as Peyton does. And that is Boobie Feaster, the 4-star wide receiver out of DeSoto.
Yep.
That was a wild recruitment. At one point, it felt like Texas or LSU. Then all of a sudden, here comes Texas A&M. And then within the last month of the process or so, it's really when USC started to heat up with Boobie Feaster and ultimately won out and got his commitment. The two are very close, Houston and Boobie Feaster. That's going to matter. Now, is it going to matter as much as what these two offenses and what these two programs look like on the field this fall? No. Because make no mistake, Peyton's a very mature kid. He's got a pair of parents that are looking out for his best interests as a football player and nothing more. And he very well understands, and his folks do as well, that he's going to make a lot of money wherever he goes. So, I could be wrong in this regard. I've been wrong before. I do not, in my dealings with him and his folks, I have not gotten the impression that Peyton Houston is the kid that's just going to jump in a bag. But what happens on the football field this fall? We're going right back around to it, Grayson. Once again, what happens on the field this fall matters so much. In the big picture, in the grand scheme, but also with regard to the Houston recruitment. To be clear, though you see these predictions from Wiltfong and Spiegelman, and though when you see predictions from national experts, you're probably thinking, oh, something is imminent here. I don't have any reason to believe anything is imminent. And I was actually just exchanging texts with Spiegs in the break, and he said the same. No, nothing's imminent. So that right there tells you all you need to know, which is that this recruitment is not coming to an end. He's not going to be making a decision as of right now until several months into the future, until the middle of his junior season. That is what, over the past few months, he has cited as his likely timetable for his commitment, is the middle of his junior season. So you're thinking October, November? I mean, maybe September, I guess, if the impression of either OU or USC is strong enough at that point that he feels confident in pulling the trigger. But you're looking at a fall decision from Peyton Houston. That has not changed. That was the case before the USC predictions. That remains the case. But OU's got a battle on their hands. And what happens, particularly over the first 6 weeks of the season, is going to be paramount. Because Oklahoma is going to have to perform very well offensively. And I know everybody in that building has a lot of confidence that they're going to do just that. But also, it wouldn't hurt if USC takes one on the chin early in the year. Maybe takes a couple on the chin early in the year.
You ready for this?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not going to regurgitate everything you said. What you said is correct about the pressure to win games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a totally different route on this.
Here we go.
We have seen that Jim Nagy's philosophy is we're going to pay kids, but we're not going to empty the coffers for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you reverse that formula.
Well, okay, and I'm glad you bring this up because I've said this before, but it's worth repeating on a day like today. I have been told authoritatively that the one position, the one player that Oklahoma will absolutely pay huge money for is a big-time quarterback.
And Peyton Houston fits that criteria. This is a position where you're not going budget shopping here. This isn't I'm going to run up to Goodwill and go get some stuff from there. I love Goodwill, by the way. We're not going thrifting. We're going big game hunting. And we're going big game hunting against other big game hunters, namely USC in this regard. You cannot be shy about emptying the coffers for a guy like this. Because I'll tell you what, you can get behind, we're not going to pay exorbitant amounts of dollars to a defensive end, like what USC gave Luke Wafel. Mm-hmm. You can get behind, because there's such a volume of receivers, we can get behind, okay, we're not going to empty the money bag for a certain wide receiver. I can get that. Running back, sure. Linebacker, we're not going to pay a large amount of money to a linebacker. I get it. At points, I think that's good. That's good restraint of spending. This is one of those times where you pay the premium, where you pay the highest premium to get a dude. You cannot lose this battle simply because you did not want to put a functional offer on the table. That cannot happen with this. You want to talk about losing? You want to talk about losing the trust of a fan base? Do that. Now look, you can still put an enormous offer on the table and still lose it, but that's something totally different. But you cannot go bargain shopping for the most important position on the field, especially with a guy that seems like he's as much of a translative lock as Peyton Houston is.
I'll take you guys behind the paywall for a second because I've been reporting this consistently for months now over at OUinsider.com. Peyton Houston and his folks want to see one thing. There's one thing that they feel they haven't seen from OU yet before they make a decision. They got to see OU play well and win football games. So, at risk of making it seem like the predictions are nothing, and they're not nothing, and I don't want to treat them as though they are, but my personal feelings on the Peyton Houston recruitment have not changed at all since those two predictions dropped. Because regardless of whether there was USC buzz or no USC buzz in July of 2025 for an elite quarterback in the class of 2027, either way, Oklahoma was going to have to play well offensively and win this fall to be able to wrap up Peyton Houston's commitment. Today, they're still going to have to play well offensively and win this fall to be able to wrap up Peyton Houston's commitment. That's what it boils down to. You play well offensively, you win games, you will in all likelihood get Peyton Houston. However, it also wouldn't hurt if USC started a little slow out of the gate.
If all things are equal, and let's just say USC and Oklahoma have equal seasons, let's just say for sake of argument, they both end up 7-5 in the regular year. Who do you think wins out there?
It's tough to believe that he's confidently committing to either school if they both go 7-5. I think at that point it might be Clemson. It might be Clemson if Clemson has a good year. And we got several texts. Jim in Arlington, Eric from Moore, Recruiting Boomer, everybody's saying, so USC doesn't have to win games? Yes, they do. It's the exact same situation for USC. If they want to get Peyton Houston, they have to play well offensively and win this fall.
Right, and especially, by the way, with as much of a turnstile at quarterback USC has been since Caleb Williams departed, because we thought Miller Moss was going to be the next great one. That turned on its head real fast. He got benched. So there is something that Lincoln Riley has to prove. But here's where I was going with that last question, though. Which program right now, in terms of a coaching staff, has more stability? Sure, Lincoln's...
That's a really good question.
Sure, Lincoln's leash is running short, sure. But is it running as short as Brent Venables is?
Yeah.
And now you're talking about an AD change as well at
That
Oklahoma.
AD change is a major wrench.
That AD change is massive.
Boy. What you take away from this conversation, folks, is that there are a lot of moving parts in this process. OU wants Peyton Houston really badly. USC wants Peyton Houston really badly. And both schools are going to have to put their best foot forward the rest of the summer in recruiting him, but ultimately they're going to have to play well on Saturdays this fall if they're going to stand a chance to get his commitment. So my outlook on the situation, my perspective on the situation has not really changed. OU still has to succeed. They still have to win. If they don't, they were never getting Peyton Houston anyway. But one major factor that Oklahoma has working in their favor, and it does matter in this recruitment. I'm not saying it's going to be decisive, but it does matter. One major factor is proximity. It's a heck of a lot easier to get to Norman, Oklahoma from Shreveport, Louisiana than it is to get to Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
That matters to that family. It seriously matters. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. One more segment of OU recruiting talk on the other side. You're listening to Locked In here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Bleed Crimson? Love great Sooner talk? Join the Ref Army by downloading our free app. Toby and TJ, Plank and Josh, Steelman and Thune, and Teddy and Tyler. We have the Sooner experts. The Ref is home to Sooner fans worldwide.
For the professional, it's not enough to just possess knowledge. That's why at GMC, we seek to refine it, to wield its power, to redefine its boundaries, while pushing the limits. And we put this knowledge to the test in every GMC Sierra by engineering each one to outperform your expectations. So you know you're getting precision and durability when you need it most. And that's what makes the GMC Sierra the truck worth knowing. We are professional grade. See your Oklahoma GMC dealers.
For decades, Moore Norman Tech has been training skilled and dedicated individuals, giving clear career paths to hundreds of graduates a year. These passionate individuals are the heartbeat of the Oklahoma workforce, serving thousands of companies that fuel this state's economy. Individuals like you. Here's to the next generation of entrepreneurs, craftsmen, and go-getters who will shape the future of this state. Oklahoma is powered by Career Tech.
Whether it's yesterday, today, or tomorrow, no one covers the Sooners like we do. From the voice of the Sooners on The Rush every day for the triple option.
We've landed on the triple option, and I'm excited.
To the Plank Show, taking over your morning drive from 6 to 9.
Every single radio person, what they want to do is they want to do a morning show.
And the addition of the SEC Network's Darinoka from 9 to noon.
While remembering that Oklahoma is top dog, I want to bring an SEC perspective.
The Ref Sports Radio Network.
Are you ready to roll into fun? Come on down to Sooner Bowling Center in Norman, where the strikes are spectacular and the smiles never end. Sooner Bowl has something for everyone. Bowling for the entire family, a game center, plus the spare time grill with delicious food. Have a friendly competition, a great family outing, or an unforgettable birthday party. Maybe problem solving is your thing. Try Escape Sooner, located in Sooner Bowl. You're locked in a room for 1 hour where you solve a puzzle and try to escape. It's fun for the entire family. Visit SoonerBowl.com for more info. At Meals on Wheels of Norman, we deliver more than just meals. We deliver connection, compassion, and care to homebound seniors right here in our community. But we need your help. Volunteer drivers are the heart of what we do, and just a little of your time can make a big impact. Join our team, make a difference. Visit MealsOnWheelsNorman.com or contact us at 405-321-7272 to sign up as a volunteer and start serving smiles today.
Do you like to stand out in a crowd while wearing the best in OU apparel? The Jimmy Austin Pro Shop carries the best brands you can wear to work or even dress up events. Lines such as Lululemon, Travis Mathew, FootJoy, Greg Norman, Grayson, or Turtleson with the OU and Jimmy Austin logo are sure to catch everyone's eye. You don't have to be a golfer to shop at Jimmy Austin. They also do corporate special orders for you and your company. Call them today, 405-325-6716, or visit theougolfclub.com for more information.
Would you like to play a more active role in your health? At Hightower Clinical, we believe all Oklahomans should have access to new potential treatment options through clinical trial participation. Our team wants to support you with the best care possible through clinical trials. No health insurance is required. Compensation is available for eligible study participants, and study care is provided at no cost.
Having the chance to go through a trial and find out if something works for them and makes their life easier, I would recommend them do it.
To learn more, scan this QR code and visit our website.
Hey y'all, I'm Blake Shelton. Being from Oklahoma, I know a thing or two about natural disasters. Tornadoes are common where I'm from and have affected my life and the lives of people I care about. No matter where you live, be aware of the dangers in your area and have a plan. You can create an emergency kit, come up with an evacuation plan, and know where to seek shelter. You never know when a disaster may hit. These simple steps can help save a life. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
It's been an all-time day on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. It really has. Bobby and B.A., via the text line wants to know, Parker, is it true that USC is taking out bank loans for its NIL rev share? That rumor's been going around. I mean, I can't directly confirm that. What I do know is, and this is part of the reason I'm just very, very intrigued to see how the rest of the cycle unwinds for USC, it's been a common theme in recent years that program has portrayed itself in behind-the-scenes conversations with recruits and their families to have a lot more money than they actually do. So maybe that's changed. Maybe the whole bank loans thing is legit. I don't know, but I've said many a time, I don't think I don't think USC holds together the number one class in the 2026 cycle. I don't think they have the requisite funds to do so. And it would seem to me that a lot of those kids are committed right now, in large part due to promises that have been made to them from a financial perspective. I mean, that's the reason why, and the numbers were public. It was $2.2 to $2.6 million in Luke Wafel's case. The kid's got a brother that's at Penn State. It was Ohio State until it wasn't, and then boom, all of a sudden it's USC. How did that happen? Go figure. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line.
So wait, hold on. Just before we move on, I do want to ask this question.
Yeah.
Do they think they actually have their money, or are they just straight up hoodwinking people?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer.
Because that's two different things.
I know what happened last year for USC in the 25 cycle is they had 14 kids decommit.
That did
by
happen.
signing day.
That did happen.
Wouldn't shock me if there were 14 more this time around. KW918 says, it's becoming more apparent that Muleshoe pulled his stunt because OU wasn't ready for the SEC. Not that he was afraid of it. Dude is killing it in recruiting in a school that will let him skirt the rules, unlike here. Meanwhile, OU was completely ill-prepared for the NIL and SEC era at pretty much every level in the revenue-generating sports. I think this is largely a misconception, K-Dub. Two things can be true. One, OU's first year in the SEC in the sport of football did not go according to plan. Secondly, it's not because they were ill-prepared as an institution. When you have, I don't know what the final tally was, 18, 20 players that are unavailable due to injury, when you have a good chunk of your roster completely wiped out by the injury bug, is that the administration's fault? Is that just a really sucky hand that you got dealt? I want to see what happens in 2025 before I conclude that Oklahoma was, and I quote, completely ill-prepared for the NIL and SEC era. Because I really don't believe that what happened in 2024 is an accurate representation, results-wise, of the type of football team that Oklahoma was actually fielding last fall. We have no idea how talented that roster actually was because we never got to see that roster at anything close to 100% firing capacity in terms of who was available versus who wasn't.
Of course not. And it's a weird question because there are in some ways and some moves that they make in recruiting to where you can say, did you guys really think this through? Like they have not, injuries aside, because obviously that's out of your control. Oklahoma has not moved in a way that would inspire a whole lot of people to say, you guys had this whole thing buttoned up.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that is where texts like that from K-Dub not only come from, but kind of get validated a little bit. You may not be correct, but the thought is a valid one because it's like, okay, we see everybody else who's successful doing this, and we don't look like we're doing this necessarily. So what's the discrepancy? Why are we not doing this to try to get these results? We're trying to get the results and do something different. I can understand where you're coming from in that regard.
Mojo Eraser on the text line says, don't think it was wise for OU and Nagy to come out and say they don't want to pay for 5 stars, overtaking a person who is similar talent who is a 3-star. This will be negative recruited, I bet. Well, how so, Mojo? And what's another school going to tell a 5-star recruit that gets on the campus? Well, don't go to OU. They're not going to pay you as much as we will. I mean, isn't that just the truth? Also, if the kid shows up to Oklahoma, isn't that exactly what he's going to hear from the staff? Is, hey, we're not going to give you this absurd figure if we have somebody that is a 3-star that doesn't want that much money that we believe is equally as good. Like, there's nothing wrong with being transparent. If that's the way that Jim Nagy is going to operate, a 5-star is going to find out about it at some point, right? Like, they're either going to learn it experientially or they're going to see that clip circulating on social media and they're going to say, well, okay, I guess if my objective is to get paid, I shouldn't go to the University of Oklahoma. You know how many 5-stars there are every single cycle? 32. You're talking about a pool of 32 players. And that, I feel, is something that gets lost in the whole discourse at times. Many folks talk nebulously about 5-stars as if there's this giant crop of 5-stars every single year to select from. No, the 5-star contingent consists of 32 players. 32 players. Oklahoma has put many a fine class together over the years without a single 5-star in its midst. The 2022 class is a great example of this phenomenon. If you go back and you examine the 2022 class that Oklahoma signed, there were some guys in that group that have turned out to be excellent college football players. Robert Spears Jennings, Gentry Williams, Grayson Halton, Nick Anderson, even though he's no longer around. R. Mason Thomas was a 2022 signee. Javante Barnes was in that class. You can still find very, very good football players outside the crop of 32 5-stars that come out of the high school ranks on an annual basis. And generally speaking, anybody that works in the recruiting industry will tell you this. I would say every single year there are maybe 10 to 12 prospects that genuinely stand head and shoulders above the rest. We're like, okay, this dude is going to have to screw it up for himself, or he's going to have to suffer a catastrophic injury if he's not going to be not only a great college football player, but a very successful NFL player as well. But I would say once you get past the top 10 to 12 players in the country, there's really not much of a distinguishable difference between the other 20-something 5-stars and the next 100, 125 guys with the 4-star designation that are below them in the rankings. The top 150 to 200, you're looking at a bunch of very comparable football players for the most part. Outside of that clear upper echelon where, like I said, there will just be a few guys every single year that are can't-miss dudes. Jackson Cantwell, that's a dude that's going to have to screw it up for himself or get catastrophically injured. Otherwise, that guy's going to play for a long, long time at the NFL level. But you can recruit a very strong class, a very successful class. You can build a roster, and a strong one, and a winning one, without any 5-star representation. You got to have 4 stars, to be clear. Like, blue chippers matter. Like, you can't go all 3. Like, then you're just Kansas State. Then you're setting the ceiling for yourself.
Yeah.
Because at that point, all you can really hope for is 8-9 wins, best case scenario. Oh, you know what? Every so often, maybe you pop off, win 10 or 11 in a given year. But for the most part, you're going to be relegated to the middle tier of college football if all you're doing is recruiting 3-star talent. You have to recruit blue chippers. But I feel as though so many folks operate as if there is this drastic difference between 5 stars and 4 stars, when in reality, that's not typically the case. You have to have blue chippers. Jim Nagy understands that. Oklahoma understands that. There's a reason why blue chippers are blue chippers. But you can find some pretty dang good players in the 3-star ranks as well. As Jim Nagy himself mentioned, he said, look, they're all over NFL rosters. We just got to go and find them. And somebody said earlier, well, that's just because there are so many more 3-stars than there are 4 and 5 stars. Yes, that's true. But consider, if Jim Nagy and his staff can successfully evaluate and find and recruit guys of the 3-star persuasion that are future NFL football players, does it really matter point he's making with that statement. If you can go do a better job than the competition of digging through the 3-star bin and finding the dudes that are going to be studs one day, you do that, you'll be competing for national championships. And that was the other thing that Nagy said, man. He said, look, our expectation, we're going to compete for, and we're going to win championships here. I wouldn't have taken the job if I didn't believe that to be the case. All right, folks. Another installment of Locked In is in the books. For Grayson Singleton, I am Parker Thune. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Hope it was an entertaining hour. Hope you had as much fun as we did. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Same time, same place. Stay right here on The Ref. The Rush with Teddy Lehman and Tyler McComas is next.